Welcome to The Independent Musician. Our weekly podcast will focus on the independent artist and the music market at large. You'll hear from those artists as well as music execs, tech experts, and marketing leaders from around the globe. We'll discuss what it takes to make it in the biz and how you can overcome obstacles as you progress your craft, all the while making it interesting and fun. Now, here's your host, Mark Skoda.
This is Mark Skoda with The Independent Musician, and I have online with me today for our podcast, Rosie Nguyen. And Rosie is actually involved in a very cool idea, which I thought would help our artists and our listeners. Fanhouse.app, Fanhouse.app, a platform really about helping build and nurture and reward your community for all sorts of creators, for whether musicians or video creators or others who are engaged. And so I'd like to welcome Rosie to the show.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, when I got your background, I thought it was going to be interesting because I try to bring various technologies and people and some very cool things that are happening around the world to our audience, and in particular to the independent musicians that are trying to build their careers, build their chops, get their music out, and ultimately, get paid for it, right? Which seems to be a much more difficult effort all the time in this world of the music business. Why don't you tell me a little about yourself first and how you got to sort of app development and working in this environment?
Yeah, I'd love to. And actually, when you were just describing kind of the path of the musician today and the struggles people go through as an independent artist to, be discovered, to grow a fan base, and then ultimately make a living and support themselves. I feel like I kind of went through that same journey as a creator, and I'm not a musician, but I'm a content creator on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and various other platforms. And I got started as a creator while I was in college. I provide for a family of four, my parents and my brother, who is in school. My parents are disabled and don't work, so I've been kind of the breadwinner for my family since I was 18. And I would, do work study in college. I went to University of Pennsylvania, and then I would send money home to help pay the rent and the bills and all of that. And then kind of when the pandemic hit, my school kicked all of us off of campus as much as most schools did. And
Right.
I found that I lost my work study job, and I was kind of like, oh no, I need to find another way to make an income, and quick. And it's not like any place was hiring at all. And so I really had to turn to this online community that I had been curating for kind of the last year while I was in college. I had about 30,000 followers on Twitter at the time, right? So it's not nothing, but it's definitely not big enough that brands.
That's right. You're doing a lot better than I am. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, 30,000 is a sizable amount, but when it comes to online numbers, it's a bit rough because it's like, again, brands or sponsors weren't coming to me offering me any kind of money for things, right? Which is kind of, I think, the traditional route that you might think for creators, or even with musicians, kind of this traditional route of making money was like, oh, you have to either get really, really big so that your streams actually start making money, or you need to sign with a label that gives you the cash that you need, right? But it's really hard to do on your own. And so I kind of got to this phase where I was like, well, I don't want to, I really believed in kind of the idea of like being supported by your direct community, because those are the people that love you. Those are the people that are supporting you. Those are the people that like your content and what you do. And that's kind of how Fanhouse came to be created. I met my co-founders, who are both Stanford grads, and then kind of just as a creator who knew all these problems and who kind of lived and breathed the content creation, and tried a lot of monetization and community platforms. I was like, this is kind of what is missing here right now, is a path of success for creators to be independent and to be able to be supported by their top fans.
Well, and you make a point there, top fans. I talk about this all the time in interviews. You had 30,000 followers. If you only had 1,000 who spent $100 with you every year on various content, in particular musicians, with respect to their music and or their merchandise, that's a $100,000 a year job. And it's much more important to have engagement and what I call the super fans than it is to have raw numbers that frankly don't care about you. Now, to your point, in the music business, if you get 1 million streams on a song, that's pretty darn good, and you get at least a couple $1,000 or so in your pocket. But that doesn't sustain you as an artist. So I think, to your point, it's really about how you engage those fans that are going to support you, love on you, share in your creative process, and ultimately support you through purchases and through promoting you as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. The kind of 1,000 true fans concept is one that I really love and really believe in, and especially because I've seen it play out for myself. And right when we say 1,000, that's kind of an arbitrary number. It's
Sure,
really,
of
yeah,
course.
whatever that number is for you. But for me now, I'll say, right, like I have close to 200,000 followers on Twitter now, and I support my family still and support myself. Through my fan house income, right? So I am also a creator on Fan House. I'm kind of using the platform I created in the way that I believed it should have been um, created for. And I make, I think, about 2 to 3 thousand a month on my Fan House. So I've made over uh, something like $65,000 using my Fan House. That just all goes towards, yeah, paying these bills that, I can worry much less about now. And every day I get to do this thing that I love, right? I get to make jokes, I get to tweet out content, I get to stream myself singing songs to my community. And for me, the concept of true fans is like the 500 people that pay me $5 every month, because that's how many subscribers I have in my fan house that come back every month. And I don't have to stress, I don't have to worry about like, oh, well, next month, what am I going to make from like, right? Because so much of content, especially, or like, right, music is like, there's a big aspect of luck involved, right? Like not all tweets go viral, not all TikTok
That's
videos go
right.
viral, not all songs
That's
go
right.
viral. And if I'm having a bad month content wise, it is really stressful to be like, well, where will I be making money? But yeah, when you know who that top engaged community is, those people will always be there because you don't really need that luck factor anymore to be able to engage that audience. Mhm,
I think what I found interesting about FanHouse, I mean, everybody is probably familiar with the Patreon models, even a
mhm,
PayPal model.
mhm,
Donate, 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 which is really a one-way relationship, right? Uh,
mhm,
send send your credit card in, send your $5 or $20 a month, and then you get nothing back. You get no feedback. You get no
mhm,
interaction. And I think FanHouse, really has, it appears to me, to created what a lot of people talk about when we all talk about community, right? We always want to create a
mhm,
community of our fans, quote unquote. And
mhm,
it seems to me you've done a pretty good job, both in terms of providing those feedback mechanisms as well as getting your money paid, right? But also ensuring that there's a constant feedback mechanism to your fans. I think
mhm,
badges was one I saw for creators that can be awarded, much like you
mhm,
do likes, but all say basically in one environment, right?
mhm. Exactly, Mark. And this is something that I think I saw through my own content creation experience too, before I founded Fan House, actually. And why I really believe that there needed to be this, two-way street of a platform, was yeah, exactly because I use Patreon, or I tried, right, like Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, these kind of, one-time donation tip jars kind of thing. And it's nice. It obviously helps. Like when when I used to be in college and was on food stamps, was very impoverished. I had followers that would Venmo me things like, "Hey, $10 for this meal," and that was great. That really helped me for that day. And then the next
Sure,
day, again, it was like, "Well, where did that person go, and who was that person?" I have no idea, because right. You can't connect with somebody on Venmo. Like you get the payment and you move on. But now it's like right with FanHouse, and like you said, we have these features like things like from group chats, right? Where all the fans get to talk to each other every day and they can post to your wall and like, vote on polls and comment things and really be part of the journey. Like a thing I love to do on my fan house is just tweet, the drafts that I have, work in progress that I'm doing,
yes,
and just be like, what do you guys think? What do you guys like? And they vote. And then, whatever they vote on, I end up, posting live to, to a much more public audience. So they get to be a part of that from the beginning. And I get to kind of just get this live feedback from them every day, like, oh, this is what my fans want. and yeah, like, and I know I can say like I know their names, right? And I know a little bit about all these people now because they've been in my fan house for over a year, right? Like I know who Marcus is, I know who Cyril is. And that is really meaningful to me as a creator. Cause again, right, like I do this because because it's fun for me, but it's also because I believe that it has a positive impact on the people that are consuming this content. So as a creator, it's really meaningful to see, that come to fruition and be able to really get to get to see your fans and get to like be part of the journey with them.
It's pretty amazing, the story. In fact, it's a sort of, I look at all these applications that get developed, and you're one of the co-founders. Started this from nothing, an idea. I read in the about page that you recently closed a $20 million A round. I mean, good gracious, that is in the vernacular of the tech space a hell of a job. And you've got a really good team of young, focused entrepreneurs. And I'm pretty impressed with that. It's amazing. Just when you thought everything was figured out, right? Facebook is the way, Instagram is the way, TikTok is the way, and here you are creating a very different model. No, I always talk about this. I like Facebook only in the sense that it allows me to do some promotion, but it has turned into essentially a nothing in terms of interaction. I mean, you do not get engagement anymore. And I think their algorithms just push that out, and it's not specific to a band or specific to a creator. YouTube, there are over 1.4 billion creators now on YouTube. I mean, how do you get engagement at that level unless you're niching everything? So I think it's kudos to your team that you've developed something new and continue to build it out. And obviously, as I say, if the dog eats the dog food, somebody spending $20 million with you, not a bad day's work.
Thank you so much for saying that, Mark. Yeah, we co-founded Fanhouse about 2 years ago, and it's definitely been a ride. I mean, I'm so grateful for it every day, and really, like, I still believe that I wouldn't be able to be here and do what I do and support my family without this platform and without the fans that I have. And I love that you brought up, kind of these different platforms that we kind of think of as the status quo, which I have been pretty vocal about that, I think social media platforms can do better. Right. My main platform again is Twitter. And I think everyone who's on Twitter knows that Twitter sucks the most at rewarding its creators or really, creating a safe community. Right. Like YouTube, Twitch, a lot of these other platforms have figured out some kind of monetization for creators. But even then Twitch, right, like has a 50% take rate on all subscriptions, which is a heavy fee to pay. And then you've got TikTok and like you said, YouTube too, where there are billions and billions of creators where it's such a saturated, market now that it becomes so hard to really stand out as a creator. Not only that, but to really, again, engage the fan and convert that audience into something that is meaningful and sustainable. And when I say that, I mean, here's an example, right? I went to VidCon this year, right? So it's a conference for creators, and it was sponsored by TikTok, and there were a lot of the big creators that were featured were all TikTok creators, like people with like tens and millions of followers on TikTok, like a lot of people. And they had speaker panels, and there were panels that, maybe had 2 to 3 people in the room, and there were panels that had nobody in the room. And I think it really speaks to like millions of followers does not always translate to, right, what we talked about, like a top fan, like who is actually going to show up in the room and show up for your event. And I think TikTok is actually doing a really bad job at helping creators, like engage their audience again. Because on TikTok, it's not even about the creator anymore. It's so much driven by the content and algorithm. Like people are there to see this fun video, but they're not there to see, right, again, to see Jasmine Rice Girl or to see, Mr. Beast or whoever it might be, names that used to mean things to people.
Yeah, I use TikTok to fall asleep at night. It works really well. It's better than counting sheep. And you point out a couple of things I'll say, and like I don't want to badmouth social media, but I think social media has become a sewer. Facebook has groups. Well, your groups never interact because I join groups as a record label, right, and as a podcaster, but I get no interaction, and there's no way to talk to those people, and it's sort of a very stoic way in which to create a dialogue. Instagram. it used to be pictures, now it's reels. They're trying to be TikTok light, and so
Mhm.
I think to myself, all right, so when I sort of saw you and your background, and I thought about this idea is I don't need to have a reach of a million. I just have to have all my fans come to one place that we can engage in various ways and present my content and then get feedback on my content and subsequently move my own career forward so that they're not going to get some, you know, some Karen, quote unquote, yelling at somebody in a car. They're going to focus on the content that I want to see. They're not going to get some girl dancing to the latest dance craze. They're going to focus on interacting with the creator, right? And
Mhm.
ultimately, they're not doing this at no cost. They're going to be motivated to reward you in a monetary sense, and therefore obviously have skin in the game, all of which, by the way, is what
Mhm.
content creators want.
Mhm.
And I think it's a very interesting construct that you guys have built in that approach. Am I on target there in terms of what I'm assuming as a potential user?
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. And I'll just kind of give a little brief to especially for people that don't know Fanhouse, right? So Fanhouse is I like to kind of explain it as like a Patreon meets Discord, right? So it's a platform that allows creators to monetize their content similar to Patreon, right? You can have monthly subscriptions, and then you can also do a lot beyond that. You can get tips, you can do unlocked like custom content. And then on the other side, Discord, there's a lot of community features that allows creators and their fans to interact with one another, right? So Discord has things, right, like these channels, group chats, like badges, rewards.
Right.
Yeah. So we provide those to fans and creators. And in terms of gated access, we currently have three types of gated access. One is, a paywall, right? So you could subscribe to a creator for $5, $10, $20 a month, whatever they have set. And then there's also password wall. So you could actually access a creator's page if you have a secret password that you might get maybe if, right? Like maybe if they watch your podcast, Mark, and you had a fan house, maybe in this episode, we would say, hey, and if love Mark as a creator, this is his password. And only the people that watch your podcast would be able to go in here.
Right.
And right, like again, they're kind of verified top fans. And then the last wall that we have is like a Spotify integration wall that specifically was built for musicians. So a fan could link their Spotify to a fan house. And if the fan has this artist in their top artist on Spotify, then and only then will they be able to go into the fan house and be able to see all the content. And so it's just like, yeah, like thinking creatively of different ways to get to this top fan idea, right? Like whether it is like proving that you're a top listener on Spotify, or yeah, like you have skin in the game because you're willing to pay to support the creator, or yeah, you get a password because you're supporting their content. All of these are three ways right now we're like trying to get creators to get to their engaged audiences.
Now, in terms of your demographic of creators today, where would you say sort of concentrations lie in terms of your types of creators that are currently using the platform?
Most of our creators today are streamers, gamers. So a lot of streamers from Twitch, a lot of Twitter creators, and I'll say a lot of yeah, like younger creators too, sort of like Gen Z.
Hmm.
And I'll say a big reason is just that a lot of our growth in the first 2 years have been just kind of like organic word of mouth and kind of stemming from like my networks and friend groups too, right? Like the creators that I knew because I was, again, the first creator on Fanhouse, and the people that saw it worked for me and wanted to try it were people that were similar to me. So it's kind of been a very strong network effects in that end. But I think we've been really excited about transitioning to, verticals that we've seen just really need a product like this. And I think that's why, yeah, I wanted to have this conversation with you because we've researched and we've interviewed a ton of small musicians, and like we see these same problems that, the creators that we've been working with have yeah, musicians are having these same problems of like, well, who are my fans and how can I, make money, and how
Right.
can I, uh raise enough so I can make a music video, so I can make a song.